Mike stood in front of the glass display case at the gun shop, his fingers tracing the cool surface as his eyes scanned the wide variety of firearms. Each handgun in front of him represented a different tool, a different level of power. His mind was sharp, calculating, thinking about each one. He had seen enough of life's darkness to know when action needed to be taken. As he surveyed the firearms, he wasn't thinking about their use in a conventional sense. He was thinking about how much force would be needed for what was coming next. He was no stranger to difficult situations, having served in the Air Force for years. He had trained, practiced, and made tough decisions when necessary. And now, in this moment, he found himself in another situation. One that was personal, one that involved his brother Shane. Shane had always been the one to keep things together, to be the steady hand in the family. But recently, he had confided in Mike about his suspicions. Shane's marriage to Monica, once idyllic and flawless, had begun to unravel. Mike hadn't seen it at first. Monica had always been charming, attractive, the perfect wife in everyone's eyes. But now, Shane's instincts told him that something was off. "I think she's been hiding something from me," Shane had told Mike during one of their late-night talks. "I can feel it, Mike. I don't know what, but I just know." Mike listened quietly. He had always known that Shane's gut instincts were strong. But without any proof, what could they do? Suspicion was one thing, but evidence was another. Mike knew his brother needed answers, even if they weren't easy to find. The next day, Mike began his quiet investigation. He wasn't going to jump to conclusions, but he had his ways. Using his skills and experience, he observed Monica from a distance. He began tracking her movements, watching for anything unusual. At first, it was small things, a change in behavior, secretive phone calls, moments when she seemed distant. But then, he began to notice something more troubling. Monica had been spending a lot of time with Paul, Shane's business partner. The two had been seen entering various hotels together, meeting several times a week. Mike's suspicions grew. What was really going on? Was Monica truly being unfaithful? Or was something deeper at play? As Mike dug deeper, he found traces of secrecy. Monica and Paul had checked into hotels under different names, and Mike had access to the hotel's reservation system. He didn't want to believe it, but the facts were staring him in the face. Monica's behavior was far from innocent. Days passed, and Shane's frustration grew. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but he had no concrete evidence to confront Monica. One evening, as they sat at a local restaurant, Shane leaned across the table and spoke in a hushed voice. "I don't know what to do, Mike," Shane confessed. "I know something's going on, but I can't prove it." Mike, feeling a mix of sympathy and concern for his brother, asked, "Have you thought about hiring a private investigator? You could get someone to look into it, maybe uncover the truth." Shane's eyes darkened, his voice trembling slightly. "What if I don't want to know the truth? What if it's too much to bear?" Mike chose his words carefully. Sometimes knowing the truth, no matter how painful, is the only way to move forward. You don't want to be left in the dark. The conversation left Mike with a nagging sense of unease. He couldn't shake the thought that things were spiraling out of control. The following week, Mike was back at the gun shop, purchasing the 9mm handgun. It wasn't about the weapon itself. It was about making sure his brother's future wasn't tainted by a lie. He had made a promise to himself. No matter what it took, he would get to the bottom of this. Back in the hotel room, Mike set up a surveillance camera discreetly. He had done this many times before, but this was different. This wasn't just about finding information for a client. It was for Shane. It was personal. He watched through the monitor as Monica and Paul met in a hotel lobby, exchanged glances, and disappeared into an elevator together. Mike's heart sank as he realized how deep this betrayal ran. Later that evening, Mike observed them once more through the camera as they entered the hotel room. The reality of the situation settled in. Mike couldn't deny the truth any longer. His brother's wife was indeed having an affair. The next day, Shane called Mike again. This time, his voice was tinged with bitterness. "I know something's happening, Mike. I can feel it in my gut. Mike had to tread carefully. You should talk to someone, Shane. Get the truth, no matter what it costs. Shane's response was chilling. If I were in his shoes, I wouldn't just let it go. I'd want to do something about it. I wouldn't just divorce her. I'd want her gone. Mike was stunned by his brother's cold words. It wasn't like Shane to talk like this. But something had broken inside him. And Mike knew it was only a matter of time before Shane would act on those feelings. In the days that followed, Mike continued his investigation, tracking Monica's every move. He knew that he had to act quickly, before things went any further. He watched her through the hidden camera, observing her every interaction with Paul. Their intimacy was undeniable. But Mike was careful not to jump to conclusions too quickly. By the time he had enough evidence, Mike had already made up his mind. Shane needed to know the truth, but the truth would come at a cost. He had to weigh his options carefully. In a quiet moment, he called Shane again, delivering the news that would change everything. Shane, I don't know how to say this, but I think you need to hear it from me. Monica, she's been seeing Paul. Shane's response was emotionless. I knew it, he muttered. I knew she was hiding something. The police never solved the case, and the fallout from the betrayal was immense. Shane filed for divorce, and Monica, though left physically injured, faded into the background. Her life, once so glamorous, was now a distant memory. Shane, meanwhile, tried to piece together the shattered parts of his life. In the years that followed, Mike and Shane never spoke of the events again, but a quiet understanding lingered between them. Mike had done what he felt was right, but the cost of the truth was far greater than anyone could have imagined. While they fished one afternoon, Shane, almost casually, remarked, You know, Mike, everything turned out the way it had to. It was like fate stepped in, took care of everything. Mike said nothing, but he understood. Life had a strange way of unfolding. Sometimes the truth would set you free, but it would also leave scars that were impossible to forget.